Welcome to My Stable Relationship, an equestrian performance podcast where we will deep dive into the mindset and management challenges of ourselves and of our peers. Our discussions will allow you to learn from experts, encourage you to set audacious goals, overcome challenges, and develop actionable plans. Ready? Let's do this. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. So as you listen to this, I'm actually back in Africa on my short notice trip, but I'm not quite sure when this will air, so it'll be relevant nonetheless whenever it comes out. And you'll be pleased to know that I actually listened to my own advice and whittled down my to-do list to the things that would impact the quality of my horses' lives while I'm overseas, and nothing less and nothing more. Because what I was saying last week is that I tend to get a bit stressed and then I have things on my to-do list that aren't actually urgent or important for me being overseas and for my horses to survive while I was there. So it's just another important reminder, and this is the first of many times that I'll say this over the course of our time together, but mindset work is really like an engine tune-up or like doing your laundry. Just because you've done it once doesn't mean that it's done forever. And you will, throughout your life, have to work on your mindset in different forms or in the same form. And you won't just get over tendencies. You will have to work through them to varying degrees and in different situations throughout the course of your life. The example of me being frantically productive before I left for my trip overseas was just another time that I've slipped back into an old habit or an old pattern. And I needed to step back and do the assessment and then do the work, which I did. And you can too. So I hope you enjoyed our very first guest episode last week with Lucy. It was a super amazing conversation and there were so many critical takeaways from it. I really enjoyed all of the DMs that you've sent me on the socials, just letting me know what your key takeaways were. So please keep doing that. I love hearing them. And today we'll be discussing something that I think was really beautifully raised by Lucy. And perhaps we didn't go into real detail, real depth on it in the podcast because it was sort of adjacent to the topic that we were discussing. So I wanted to deep dive into it today. And that was the point that she made about acknowledging the stage of your life that you're at. So let's just start with what I mean by acknowledging the stage of life. And by that, I mean that you can think of your life as going through different seasons or different chapters. But what's really important is that we are able to see and understand the importance or the priorities of each of these different chapters. So Lucy raised this really beautifully when she said that her current chapter was about being a mum and having kids. This meant that when she does go back to competing, she'll likely be leaning towards show jumping for a little while, not eventing, because in Australia, the amount of travel and time that eventing takes is somewhat more than show jumping, and show jumping can sometimes be done in a day, whereas eventing sometimes takes 3, 4, 5 days. That was a really great example of Lucy understanding and seeing the priorities in her current chapter of life. And I kind of mean just that. I mean, when I say acknowledge, I mean that you are able to see it, understand it, accept it, and plan to suit. But what I see sometimes in my clients is that they don't really acknowledge the season that they're in. And that can be an unconscious or a conscious thing. So, as in, you either don't see the stage of life that you're in at all, or you can, but you're choosing to reject it. And if you are unconscious to the season of life, or if you are conscious and rejecting the season of life that you're in, you may feel unsettled, unsatisfied, unhappy, stressed, restless, like there must be more, like you have no time for yourself and everything is overwhelming, like you haven't achieved any goals, or like life hasn't turned out the way you wanted. And normally what happens is that you had goals and dreams, but the stage of your life that you're in currently perhaps means that you're not reaching those goals or dreams. So you get this general sense of disillusionment or disempowerment. And this is why it is so important to be able to acknowledge, understand, and accept your current stage of life. And it's also really important that we align your goals with your current stage. So let's talk a little bit about how to acknowledge and how to plan for your goals around your current stage of life. Why do we want to do this? I'll give you some examples. It's unlikely that you are going to be a 4-star eventer if you've only got 2 hours per week where you don't have your children requiring care and 2 hours per week to train. It's more likely that a 4-star eventer needs more hours per week than that. Or me. For example, with me, I'm not going to be riding my 26-year-old horse into the Olympic dressage arena. Those types of goals just don't align with my current stage of life. It doesn't mean that I can't aim for the Olympic dressage team in future. It just means that it's not happening right now because my horses are all seniors. And I know that no matter the amount of training I put into them, they're not going to qualify for that level of intensive competition at their ages. And the trick here is really that acceptance piece. Because if you are trying to force a situation that's not going to work, and if you have one of those unreachable goals, you're going to make yourself feel useless or feel like you can't achieve anything, and your mindset is really going to take a turn for the worse. But when you accept, I'm not saying give up. I'm basically saying we need to tailor the goal for the moment while still looking towards the future. I'll say that again. By accepting, I'm not telling you to give up. I'm saying we need to tailor the goal for the moment that you're in and still look towards the future. So that means that at some point in the future, you may want to move to a different stage of life, or you may work out that you don't want to be in the stage of life that you're in at the moment. And the real steps there are that you need to work out what stage of life you're in first, and then what the next stage will be. We need to work on setting a timeline from getting to A to B. We need to work out what you can do right now, and we need to work out what you will be able to do in the next stage. So that difference between A and B. And then it's a matter of the thought work and managing our thoughts and feelings. Because our minds default to the negative, they have a negative bias. They sometimes get in this all or nothing thinking. And often we find that if we can't achieve our big long-term goal right now, or we can't take action towards our big long-term goal right now, we feel like we're not good enough, like we'll never be able to reach it, and all is lost. And again, this is when our thoughts and our feelings about our circumstances are so important. Now, the other thing I see people doing is using the stage of life that they're in as an excuse for not chasing their goals. And what I mean by that is, let's take my example. I could have said something like, all my horses are now rehab horses, or they are all seniors, they're all 20 years or older. And therefore, I will sit and do nothing. I'll just leave them in the paddock until the point that some of them die off and I can purchase another Grand Prix prospect. But instead, I have made a plan to continue my learning and my training, and I still find a way to drive me towards my goals, just in a different way to suit my current season. So I do a lot more groundwork with them, a lot more lunging, work in hand, liberty work, which is really cool. Things that I would have never done when they were in heavy competition work. But now that they're seniors and now that they're rehab horses, it makes more sense to be on the ground working them and strengthening them than on their back necessarily. And that doesn't mean that I won't be in a different season in the next 5 years, and I might have a couple of young dressage prospects on my hands, and my training might be slightly different. But I've adapted my goals so I can still train and still interact with my horses, just in a different way. Another good example of someone not using their stage of life as an excuse for not chasing their goals was Lucy's example from the podcast. So again, she said that she's currently swapping from eventing to show jumping, and that's so that she can keep tracking towards her goals as a rider and a competitor while working within the current season of life that she's in with her children. If she was using her current stage of life as an excuse, it might be something like, well, I'm a mother now, so I'll give up on horse riding until my kids have left home, or forever. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. If you know someone that's done that, it's everyone's choice. And it's all about the thoughts and the feelings behind the decision. But Lucy obviously knew that she still really wanted horses to be part of her life in one way or another. So she adapted the way in which she was reaching her goal to suit her season of life. Another way I see people using the stage of life as an excuse for not chasing their goals is by shutting themselves down to lateral thinking or to thinking about options. So in Lucy's case, she's got children and she still wants to be able to compete. And we talked about things like, could she have a nanny to help her, or could she ride other people's horses rather than having her own, because that comes with a large care burden as well? Or could she swap discipline for shorter show runs? Or could her family come with her to shows? So there were loads of options there. But if you are using the season of life as an excuse for not chasing your goals, you'll really struggle to come up with these options and your mind will be really, really closed to possibilities. So just check yourself. But here's the really big statement about how to tell if you are using your current stage of life as an excuse not to pursue your goals. If the decision that you make is driven by a sense of fear, a sense of lack, or if you feel pressure from an external circumstance or a person that makes you feel you need to bend or let go of your goals, you will be using your current stage of life as an excuse. So again, if the decision you make is driven by number 1, fear, number 2, lack, or number 3, pressure from an external, whether that's a circumstance or a person, and you feel that you need to bend or let go of your goals, then you are using your current stage of life as an excuse. And that's the big statement that I want you to take away from today. So your actionable takeaways, just some reflection questions for you to quickly think on or journal on. And just remember, it's always actually easier to journal because it sounds silly, but your hand will write things down that you didn't even know were in your mind if you just give yourself a few minutes and a blank piece of paper. So I want you to have a think about 3 questions. Number 1, what stage of life are you in? Number 2, what goals did you once have that you haven't met yet? And why do you think you haven't met them? And this can be horsey or life related. And number 3, are you using your current stage of life as an excuse as to why you can't meet those goals? Now, if you want to pause the podcast, rewind, you'll be able to listen to those again and write them down. And another great thing to do is to check with someone close to you to see if they have any reflection on you, on your current stage of life, and on your goals that you have or have not reached yet. And if you'd like to take this work further, then it's time to go to my calendar and sign up for my new discovery calls. These are a great opportunity for us to just meet and greet, talk about what's going on with you and your mindset and your horse world and horse interactions at the moment, and see if I can help you any further with that. To book, you can book directly into my calendar. The link is in the show notes, or you can message me through my website, contact form, or social media at Journey of Equine, and I will send you the link. Now, we all know that our mindset impacts our horse training. Our horses pick up on our emotions and feelings so easily. My goal with this podcast is to use this type of mindset and management work to help you more effectively rehabilitate or train your horse. We will balance your life inside and outside of the arena so that you can find your version of a stable relationship. And with that, I just want to say a big thank you for tuning in today. Please subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you're listening on so that you don't miss any of the future episodes. You can also follow along on the socials at Journey of Equine. The links are in the show notes. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and I will speak to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. My goal is to help you more effectively train or rehabilitate your horse by focusing on your mindset and management, both inside and outside of the arena. If this sounds like something you'd like one-on-one help with, or if you'd like to follow along for more, come and join me on Instagram or Facebook at Journey of Equine. The links will be in the show notes. Have a great week, everyone.